Hello and welcome back. Here's a question for you. Who's going to be the next Prime Minister of United Kingdom? Now, remember, I don't teach you anything, I just remind you that which you may have forgotten. And when you look at, let's label it as politics, poly being many, ticks being bloodsuckers, you may understand that as you gain more knowledge, by default, you also gain a greater sense of responsibility. You are able to respond differently. And when we look at what's been going on in politics in the UK, we've had the Partygate, we've had the Beergate, we've had the continuous lies surrounding those and other things about what was said when it was said. Masks are in, masks are not in, jabs are good, jabs are not good, and all the rest of the, I'm going to be polite because this is on YouTube, silliness. So even when Boris is replaced by fill in the blanks, remember this too. The game's the same, but the players change. So what I believe it does is it gives you and I a wonderful opportunity to not only become the change that we want to be, but also to be transformational in what really we want and how we want it. Because let's be honest, our MPs are meant to be our servants. We pay them to operate on our behalf. But you and I also know that government is basically corporate HQ. So whoever has been controlling Boris, then whoever is replaced will then be controlled by. And it's sad to see this go on, and it's not difficult because all you need to do is follow the money. I mean, I know it's a slight tangent but connected, but if you look at one of the 10 biggest donators to the BBC, lo and behold, you'll find Bill and Melinda Gates. So when you look at the simple fact that we have created this money paradigm and all we need to do is follow the money, it then leads us down a path of ultimately control. And if I'm not mistaken for what I see, and this also includes the royals, eugenics, reducing the population and then by default then controlling them. So it's no different in one sense to how we treat commercially raised animals. We basically herd them into a given area, we then inject them, jab them, and then we brand them to show that they've been injected. And when you look around, that's pretty much going on, the track and trace and all the other silly things over something that hasn't been isolated called SARS-CoV-2. Well, SARS-CoV-1 2002-3 also wasn't isolated under what we call the Koch postulates or the rivers, which is the golden standard. But put that to one side. It's not about making them wrong. It's about us taking radical responsibility and ensuring that whatever silliness goes on out there, we can still leave the place better than we arrived. As far as I'm concerned, what we need to be creating, and I'm happy to put myself forward for this, to be part of a conscious assembly of individuals that will listen and be connected to their community, and assist that community, which may be different to one located somewhere else. And I think that's pretty much what most of us are doing anyway, as this silliness continues. But it's sad to see that what I can label as the mainstream media, the MSM, which has scared people. I mean, you can read the book by Laura Dodsworth, A State of Fear, how the UK government weaponized COVID. And it's just, well, another form, you can again do your homework on this, would be what we call mass formation psychosis, where people have literally just bought into this hook and sinker, the whole lot. And when we just stop and think about it, there's nothing outside there to be afraid of other than the narrative, which is the most powerful thing they're controlling. But there was a professor that I was listening to the other day that said this has been going on for about the last 3 centuries. So it's nothing new, but it's just ultimately got us to where we are now because everyone's tuned in to the British corporation. So obviously there's an invite to stop paying your BBC license legally, and to certainly fill this with what you want to fill it with, or tune into people as well that will uplift you, inspire you, as opposed to those to you that scare you and tell you there's something wrong. So again, this invite, I suppose, is certainly for myself and for others that are listening, to come together and create a conscious assembly of individuals that ultimately want to be of service to their community. It's not about taking control of necessarily the other misdemeanors that go on in other countries. Those may be a factor to consider. However, a part of Magnus is truly saddened when I hear the BS, the belief systems, what were you thinking, of the stuff that goes on within the BBC and all, because that's just it's basically just a bicep for the present government, and then obviously whatever replaces it or whoever replaces it. I mean, the first thing that ever comes up on the news is what Boris says this, or Boris said the other, or Sunak said this. Or I'm not saying you don't listen to it, but the lies and the deceit and the misinformation it's so prevalent. It's promulgated throughout mainstream media, and they're all banging on saying the same thing. I mean, 1984, maybe you want to look into that as well. Good old George Orwell. So again, this invite, who's going to be the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom? I think we've got a wonderful opportunity to transform politics, because it ain't working. It hasn't worked for a number of decades, and I'm into my fifth. So what would it look like? What would it smell like? What would it taste like? What would it feel like? And for me, it certainly needs to be localized. It certainly needs to be, wait for it, we need to be made accountable. We need to be transparent. And ultimately, it needs to also include liberty. Over to you, what do you think? My hope is more and more people are waking up and making the necessary distinctions whereby they can stop paying their BBC licence, GB News, Neil Oliver, tuning into other frequencies that will better uplift them and inspire them. Because if I listen to the BBC, you and I both know it is absolute BS. It really is. There's nothing I've heard on there which is truthful. Not even the weather can they get right. So there's an invite really to start filling this with what you want to fill it with. And again, it's not about making them wrong. It's about us being that change that we want to feel, hear, smell, see, and ultimately leave the place better than when we arrive. But the only way we can do that is by connecting with those people in our community. It's not difficult in one sense. It's back to basics. Or as I often say, get to know your local farmers now, or pay your doctors more later. Anyway, what is today's date? I think it's the 7th of July 2022. Interesting time, exciting times ahead. But I can't wait for the transformation of politics. I really can't. Anyway, as always, my love and blessing. And as I keep reminding myself, don't take life too seriously. Life was never meant to be serious. Bye for now.